Welcome back after the short break. Our next speaker is Arne Åhlander. Arne is a principal consultant, coach, and trainer. He helps organizations and also the people within those organizations to think for themselves, to make their own decisions and challenge their assumptions. Today, Arne will focus in his speech on the path that leads to self-organization. What is needed in order to excel at self-organization? What are some building blocks and enablers of that? Please pay close attention to the talk entitled Building Blocks for Self-Organization. Arne, you have our full attention.
Thank you very much, and welcome to listening to this talk. And one of my purposes in life is to help others and help others ask the right questions and make the right decisions. And you could call that self-organization. So when I do that, I think about things like this. A quote from Henry Ford, who may not be very well seen in agile communities, but he played an important role in industrialization. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a process, and working together is success. And one way to work together is to self-organize. And so I'll talk a little about what self-organization is, why different people want that, and what benefits they see in it. I have my own view on prerequisites for self-organization. 3 things that I believe is necessary before you can even dream of self-organization. And then I'll talk about some things that I have done, some maps to follow, paint a possible map to follow, and also talk about enablers for self-organization. What are the building blocks, so to say? And then maybe you benefit from using a couple of tools. So in 30 minutes, this is what you can look forward to. And then we will leave room for questions and answers after that. So what is self-organization? Different people, they have a different opinion, and I have focused on 3 different opinions. So here is one. This is from what is called Encyclopedia of Ecology from 2008. And here it says that self-organization is the emergence of pattern and order in a system by internal processes rather than external constraints or forces. So we're talking about something internal. In Agile, it's probably the team within the self-organized team, patterns and order in that system. So I find this quite helpful definition. Another that I found is in an article by Michael Y. Lee and Amy C. Edmondson, Self-Managing Organizations, Exploring the Limits of Less Hierarchical Organizing from 2017. And they talk about efforts that radically decentralize authority in a formal and systematic way throughout the organization. So they talk about decentralization. That's the key word here. And formal and systematic is also something to think about. In Agile, we depend upon self-organizing teams. And in the 2017 version of the Scrum Guide, they wrote about self-organization, and they wrote the following. They first wrote that Scrum teams are self-organizing and cross-functional. And then what they write about self-organizing teams is that they choose how to best accomplish their work rather than being directed by others outside of the team. So here we are back within the inside of the team again. So those are 3 parts that resonate with me, 3 definitions that resonates with me when I talk about self-organization. And then I think it's good to ask the question, why should we self-organize? And I'm going to hope that you who are listening to this talk have some opinions on this. So we're going to try out something that may work or may not work. So look upon this as an experiment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we're going to use a tool called Mentimeter, where you can go either to www.menti.com and use the code which is written here, 53309885, or you can go directly using the link on item 2, or you can use your mobile phone and use the QR code. So I'll leave this here for a little while, and then I will stop sharing and start the Mentimeter questioning as well. So hopefully you have noted the code, and it's easy to remember, menti.com, and then you note the code. That's probably the easiest way. So I'll stop sharing, and then I will start the I will share so that everyone can see that we actually have some answers here. So what I've heard from many people when I ask this question is some answer higher quality, other answer faster results, some answer higher value, and many of you answer improved employee satisfaction. I believe I'm not unique, because I hate when people tell me how to do my work. And that is what self-organization is about. We get the right to decide who should do the work, in what order to do the things. And then there may be other reasons as well. So if you have other reasons, you could always write them in the chat of the Zoom call. So I'll stop sharing this. And I will share my presentation again, and then tell you a couple of things that I've heard. Multiple skills needed is in addition to what I gave as alternatives on the Mentimeter question. And yes, I've heard all of these before. And I think it's good to start with why. Why do we do something? And then be clear about that. Make it visible, make it evident to everyone. We want self-organization for this reason. And many times it could also be to accomplish a common goal. And if we do it together, we self-organize, we hopefully get higher employee satisfaction. So those are a couple of things that I have seen. And then when I think about self-organization, I think about organizations when you do not have self-organization. What do you have instead? Well, you have someone who is organizing. Maybe it's a manager, maybe it's a team lead, maybe it's someone else, but there is someone organizing and not allowing every individual together or the team to self-organize. So what are the prerequisites for self-organization as I see it? Well, first of all, that person who is organizing, get out of the way. If you're the manager and you want to accomplish self-organization, get out of the way. Leave room for, leave a space for self-organization. That's not always enough, because if I leave room for that, you need the second thing, the second prerequisite as well, and that is support the team to get in there. Because just because there is a room for self-organization doesn't mean that every team directly steps into that space. It could be that we are a little hesitant to do that, so we need to support them, most likely. If we're lucky, there is no need for support, and then it hopefully happens faster. But sometimes, and a lot of times, we need to support the team to get in there and try and experiment with self-organization. And there will be blockers for self-organization, of course. So get rid of the blockers. As a manager, if I leave room for self-organization, I get out of the way, and I then support the team to self-organize. Of course, I may also facilitate to get rid of blockers. If you work according to Scrum, this is very much for the Scrum Master, of course. And those are my 3 prerequisites for self-organization. And then what I like to think about also when I move along is to try to find some sort of roadmap for getting there. And then things like knowing about team capability. I don't like to use the word maturity, because a mature team may be capable, but that's not always true. So I believe to take a look at the team I'm working with and help them grow and grow their capabilities together. Then it may be a good idea to know a little about group dynamics. I won't get very deep into this. I'll talk and mention Evolution of Team Dynamics by Tuckman and Susan Whelan's Integrated Model of Group Development. They are pretty similar, and they can be used as a sounding board if you have something to relate to. You may want 1 model, you may want 2, you may want 3, but not 55, I guess. Evolution of Team Dynamics, I'm pretty sure you've heard about this. Forming, storming, norming, performing. Sometimes you talk about the 5th stage as well, adjourning, when you kind of leave the team and you don't work together anymore. We will get back to storming, because conflict and polarization doesn't help self-organization. Whelan's integrated model of group development starts with dependency and inclusion. You're usually dependent on a designated leader. There may be some safety concerns and some inclusion issues, and sometimes it feels like we're doing pseudo work. Then counter-dependency and fight, disagreement about goals, values, procedures. A healthy conflict in these areas can absolutely lead to trust. And if you get there to trust and structure, then you probably will get commitment and cooperation. And after that, work and productivity. That is what some people would say flow. Productivity, effectiveness, you are moving towards a goal, you know what tasks you should deal with. And then you continue or you terminate the team because we have reached our goal. If we take a look at this model once again from another perspective, you can see two axes here. The x-axis to the left, focus on leader and relations, that's early on, and then focus on work and oh, sorry, I need to go back here. And collaboration, and then productivity, high and low. In the beginning, dependency and inclusion, and when you get into counter-dependency and fight, you may get even lower productivity for a while, but then the idea is that it's supposed to increase. So these models can be good sounding boards, absolutely. And then what you may think about, what are blockers? I talked before about blockers. So what are blockers? Remember storming in the Tuckman model, and examples of storming could be the following, like negativity, continual criticism of team activities. I'm sure you have experienced this in some teams, and that is something that we want to leave behind. Dissatisfaction, some parts of a team, some entire teams, some individuals, they are dissatisfied with anything and everything, and that can lead to other problems, of course. Hostility, sometimes we have people who are argumentative and even threatening, but they may not mean that. They are perceived to be that, and that doesn't always help. So these are blockers that you may need to get away from. And it's all about observing. So what are we doing right now? Sometimes, and I need to plead guilty to this, it's so easy when someone else says something to say, well, that won't work, or that we tried before and it didn't work, etc., etc. So appreciative inquiry sometimes is really, really, really good. So what I have in front of me, very close, because I have a tendency of shooting down ideas, are some instructions that may not be easy to read because I have this background, virtual background. But what I have written here or printed is, when I hear something from someone else, I want to say, that's interesting, tell me more. Or that's interesting, why would you say that? That's interesting, why would you do that? Or that's interesting, why would you ask that? That helps me to be more curious about things and less aggressive or argumentative or questioning of ideas. So all kinds of different blockers we can explore. And then what about enablers? Enablers for self-organization. I'm going to ask you to do the following. I'm going to ask you to think about what is the most important enabler for self-organization you can imagine, and please write that in the Zoom chat so that we see a little about what different people are thinking as enablers. So I'll see if I can do one thing here and stop sharing. I'm not very good at that. So yes, and that, and now I'm gonna check the chat if I can see something about that, and I'm not sure I can. So maybe I can get some help to read if there is anything written by participants.
So Arne, I think that Zoom is not possible, but Slack is possible, and we have some answers. Like forgiveness is one answer, then meaningful work is yet another answer. So if you open the main pink channel on Slack, you will see those comments.
Okay, excellent. So what I will do then, I will continue to share. Let me just see where I am. I'm here.
We have one more answer, promise of getting better.
Yeah. So forgiveness, I heard, promise of getting better, and then you said one more thing in the middle.
Meaningful work.
Meaningful work. Meaningful work or purpose. Some of you may have heard about a book by Daniel Pink called Drive, and he writes about research that has been done at the Norway Business Institute in Oslo by a professor called Anders Dysvik, and he talks about 3 intrinsic drivers that are quite common to knowledge workers: purpose or meaningful work, mastery, becoming good at what we are working on, and autonomy, being self-sufficient and maybe self-organized. Frequent answers that I have seen to this question: aligned values, working agreement, coaching and support, inspiring vision. That's about meaningful work, I would say. Shared and challenging goals, because if we share the same goals and they are not too easy to accomplish, that can also be enablers for self-organization. Many of us, we are really good at getting into the solution mode. So we kind of get inspired by trying to find answers to problems. And another enabler for self-organization is to remember that it may take time. Don't rush. And then be consistent. It's easy if you forget about not rushing, that you want to see examples and results soon. And it's easy that you jump from one idea to another. So be consistent. These are a couple of enablers that I have seen. And the last one that I've seen is a safe environment. The last couple of years, I've heard many people talking about psychological safety, feeling safe at work, not kind of having a lot of equipment around you to make you safe, but feeling that I can be myself. I can go to work and I can say the things that I want to say without feeling hurt by anyone. And psychological safety is something that was identified by Google when they tried to figure out what is it that makes some teams really effective and really efficient and not all of our teams. And they thought it was different things that were tangible, but it turned out that they came up with the following things. And on top of their list, psychological safety. Team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. They feel safe to fail because if we try to experiment and we try different approaches, some of them will be successful and some will be less successful. And if we're afraid to fail, then the performance is not that good. You can see that in product development. You can see that in sports as well. Other things that they talk about, and you can see a link here at the bottom to this reference. Structure and clarity, dependability, meaning, we mentioned that before, and also impact, that what I do matters. What I will do after this presentation, I have already created a post on my blog about references to this talk, and I will add to that, and I'll tell you where to find it towards the end. So a couple of tools that you can use, especially how can we foster psychological safety on our teams? Well, of course, Google have some ideas about that, and what also is good to take a look at is the work by Amy Edmondson that I mentioned before. So here are a couple of ideas. If I'm someone who is supporting a team that I want to help to become self-organized, then demonstrate engagement. And this should be congruent. It shouldn't just be by the lips, but true engagement. Show understanding, tell what you understand, tell what you observe, etc. Be inclusive in interpersonal settings. That's means that what I do is that I share information about my work and also my work style and preferences, and I encourage team members to do the same. So talk more about ourselves, be inclusive in decision making, that's kind of obvious, and show confidence and conviction without appearing inflexible. There is a link to references on this. And what Google have created is a tool called a Team Effectiveness Discussion Guide, addressing different things. I have used this a number of times, and here is the part about psychological safety. A little about signs that your team needs to improve psychological safety, and some questions to ask yourself. This I can highly recommend taking a look at. So what else? What else can we do to create psychological safety? Well, I found a really good source for this. That's an article in Harvard Business Review from August 24 of 2017. And in this article, they talk about approach conflict as a collaborator and not an adversary. That's good for any member of a self-organizing team. Speak human to human, that I will return to. Anticipate reactions and plan counter moves. If this works, good, but what if someone doesn't like my idea, etc. Replace blame with curiosity. Ask for feedback on delivery, and that is, if I'm working with a team, I want to ask them for feedback on how I facilitate the self-organization, how I'm supporting them. And then you could measure psychological safety. Amy Edmondson has created a tool to ask questions about this, and it's more like comparing our team to itself over time. So you see the link to that as well. Speak human to human is well, let's see if I can be a little faster here. Speak human to human. I'll give you some examples of how you can do that. So when I talk to someone else, it's good to remember that this person with their good stuff and their bad stuff is just like me. So here are a couple of examples how I think sometimes, and how you can think as well. And this is from this article, of course. This person has beliefs, perspectives, and opinions just like me. This person has hopes, anxieties, and vulnerabilities just like me. And a couple of other examples here. And you can replace them with anything that is true to you and that is important to you as well. This person wants to feel respected, appreciated, and competent just like me. This person wishes for peace, joy, and happiness just like me, because this is about speaking human to human. Another tool that you can use comes from Glenda Earyoung. It's called the Container Difference Exchange Model, CDE. A team is like a container. What are the boundaries? And if we want self-organization, maybe we need to change a couple of things. Differences between the team members, exchange within the team and with other teams as well. Maybe we need to change something to get more self-organization. And then a model that I like to use as well comes from Jerry Weinberg. And Jerry Weinberg is not with us anymore. He's written a lot of good books. And in his book, and now I need to remember the title of the book, it's here, Becoming a Technical Leader, an Organic Problem-Solving Approach. In this book, and I'll put the reference on my blog post, he talks about motivation, organization, information, and jiggle. So how do we help people to, how do we encourage, etc., etc.? What is the structure of the organization? What information do we share, and so that we can carry out our work? And then jiggling, kind of shake around an idea and try different things, take something away from the natural flow so that we see that there is a change. And when you do this, it's also good to ask yourself, before you do any of this, is this the right time? Would waiting till later be better? Is this the right way? Would some other way be better? Or is this the right amount? Would some greater or lesser amount be better? So in Scrum, you can also find patterns that has to do with self-organization. Here are 4. 3 are Scrum Patterns, the top 3, and Community of Trust is a pattern from Organizational Design Patterns, a book by Jim Coplien and another author as well. So you may want to look into those a little. And then what you may want to do as well, after taking a look at Scrum Patterns, you may take a look at different facilitation techniques, and liberating structures is a good place to take a look at. Liberating structures that I have used to support self-organization and build upon individuals and team members and the entire team is 1, 2, 4, all, where you start with one person. Everyone in a team, they start individually for 1 minute. They come up with potential solution to a problem. Then in pairs, we discuss our potential solutions that we come up with one suggestion that we agree on as a pair. And then we go into groups of 4 and we take a look at what the pairs came up with, and we agree upon one thing. And then we tell everyone. Impromptu networking to get started in different situations. Min specs to find out what is the minimal amount of things that we need to do to reach a goal. 15% solutions. What can we do right now with the information we have? And then crowdsourcing, a way of also building upon ideas from individuals. These can help you when supporting and facilitating self-organization. And then you may ask also, what about information availability and transparency? Well, the more information we have available and the more transparent it is, the better, I would say, when it comes to self-organization. Alignment on the same goal is really good. And then also, are there any constraints to what we are doing? So what I suggest you do after listening to me and after listening to questions that people have, you could do the following: create a graphic organizer, divide a piece of paper into 3 parts and write down one thing I learned, one thing I want to investigate, and one thing I want to try at work. This is for your own personal benefit. And let's try the Menti once more and see if that works once more. Here, the same link. I'll stop sharing and I'll go there and make sure that it is moved. So let me see here where I am here. So So please write your top 3 takeaways. You have the opportunity to write down 1, 2, or 3 from listening to me. And then hopefully you have some that you write, and then they will show to everyone what people got from listening. And of course, I'm hoping that there will be a lot of things that you write down. That doesn't always happen. So with that said, thank you for listening to me. And now I'm here to answer any possible questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Arne, for this really absorbing talk. Thank you also for a lot of thought-provoking points and interesting materials that you added to your presentation. We could start this Q&A session with one question that we already have, probably others will follow. Encouragement to co-create solutions. What are the best main kinds of co-creation approaches that Arne saw in organizations, like communities, clubs, etc.?
So what I like to see is, and I've seen, is community of practice is one thing, and different people call it different things. When you take a look at the so-called Spotify model, I think they have some name for it that doesn't come to mind right now, but it's like the old way of working with carpenters and different things, and guilds they talk about community of practice or guild, where even if you are on one team and I'm on another team, if you and I have the same competency, we can work together and kind of improve that competence all together in the company, and then also our teams benefit from that. That's one thing that I've seen. And what I'm actually see most of the time working is allow individuals to come up with suggestions, and allow individuals to come up with suggestions on how to improve competence and grow for the team. The more we listen to each other, the longer it takes. So that's sometimes a hinder for this approach. But the more we listen to each other and we give different perspectives, and I'm a person who like different perspectives. So I'll show you one thing. I probably benefit from taking away my blur here for the camera, if I can do that. Let me see here. I'll choose no virtual background at all. So if I show one thing here, that's one perspective on this thing, and it may be easy to guess what it is, but as soon as I turn it and we get other perspectives, we see that it's a stapler. And that's true in other situations as well, but it's more obvious when we talk about physical things.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. So I guess we don't have currently more questions, so we can come back to your Menti page if you would like to check the results. Or
yes.
We still have like 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes.
No, okay, no, excellent. So now we have some answers here, and I'll share it on my screen. Here you see things like, and this is like a word cloud, and I'm sure you know what a word cloud is. That those words that got the most mentions, they are larger. So psychological safety in the middle is something that you took away. Being curious, support, team dynamics, read the book Drive, absolutely, and I will, all the things that I've mentioned, what I will do is I will put them on my website, and I will show you where you can find it. So let me see how I can show you that in an easy way. I'll probably need to do this. So this is just the starting of the web blog post. I did talk about self-organization at AgileByExample today, and I will add to this post following with the references. So if you go to my company website, accurate.se, and then in the blog you will find this blog post. So there you can find all the references that I've mentioned and links to tools that I've been talking about as well. So I'll stop sharing that.
Awesome. Once again, thank you very much, Arne, for your presentation. It was a pleasure to have you here with us today. So I think this is the time also to ask our audience to give the feedback. There will be a message sent to the Slack channel with a link to leave the feedback. So we kindly ask you to do that.